This Albion Online video is about a challenge no one has ever done before. No one has ever done this challenge before. And that challenge is, can you beat Albion Online with dementia? That's right. It's a challenge that no one has ever done before. Beating Albion Online with dementia. And we're going to be attempting this challenge today in Albion Online, where we attempt to beat the game, beat Albion Online with dementia. Let's get started. Let's do this. So I started like any other challenge, where I rush through the tutorial and do the objectives, talking to the NPCs and completing quests, where I can then get my quest rewards, and then proceed to the next area. And then I can proceed to the next area by equipping the proper gear that the NPCs have given me, and then I can proceed to the next area. Here I am, and I have the gear equipped. I'm going to proceed through the door and fight the NPCs now, and then that will allow me to proceed to the next area. So all I have to do now is kill Strange Thief, and then I might as well also get Big Spencer here, and go ahead and fight him as well. Now, Big Spencer is new to the game, perhaps, possibly, maybe. I mean, Albion Online has been out for about 6 years now. And, you know, I'm decided that I want to complete a challenge that no one's ever done before. No one's ever completed the game before with dementia. So, with that, we have killed Big Spencer, and we have acquired the gear that will let us possibly proceed to the next area. Except, is it going to let us proceed to the next area? Well, by completing the challenge of can you beat Albion Online with dementia, we will then be able to proceed to the next area. So all I have to do is kill these henchmen. That will allow me to proceed to the next area by equipping the gear that they give me, which will let me go to the next area to complete the challenge of Albion Online. The challenge that has never been done before, which is, can you beat Albion Online with dementia? And the question is pretty simple. We just have to go through the tutorial, and, you know, I know that I need to buy a mule here and skips through some dialogue, so here we are buying a mule. Alright, we have the mule, and then we're going to go ahead and ride the mule. But before we proceed forward, you know, we have to buy the mule so that we can ride the mule and then proceed to the quest area up ahead. Now, if you don't know when you're at this part of the tutorial, you'll have to buy a mule, okay? And when you buy the mule, you can then equip the mule. Not while you're riding the mule, you have to not be riding the mule to equip the mule to ride the mule, and then you can proceed to the next quest area, which is right up ahead. But you'll need a mule to get there, and then to get the mule, you'll have to go to the market, and you'll have to buy the mule for 3 silver right here. You see, that's the first time I bought this mule here. And then you'll go ahead and take the mule. Now, it looks like I'm experiencing a game bug, so I'm going to throw these mules out that I somehow have. I don't know how I have those mules. I guess the game just gives you a mule now, but I'm not really sure. But here we have the quest giver, and he's going to have us craft a beginner's pickaxe, which we need to get some rough logs. So in order to do that, we're going to have to gather some rough logs in order to craft a pickaxe. So in order to craft the pickaxe, we're going to need some rough logs, which we're going to have to gather real quick right over here. There we go. And we'll also need some rough stone that we'll have to, you know, craft our beginning tools here, okay? So, when we talk to the quest giver, he's going to give us a quest to craft the beginner's pickaxe and the beginner's axe. But in order to do this, we are going to need to get some rough logs and some rough stone right over here. You can see it's right above the character. It's very simple stuff. If you've never done the tutorial, this is all very basic, but it'll allow us to craft the pickaxe and the beginner's axe. Alright. Now, with that said, we go to this quest giver here. And before we go to this quest giver, though, before we go to him, it's very important that you go to the shop here and you pick up a mule. And you'll need to purchase this mule for 3 silver. And to ride the mule, you just equip the mule. And then you push the, I believe it's the A button, and then that'll let you ride the mule. And you'll get to be able to go to the quest giver to complete the quest here. There we go. Which will then have us craft a beginner's pickaxe and a beginner's axe. But in order to craft these, we're going to need rough logs and rough stone, which you can get right above the NPC here. But before we gather anything, we're going to have to go to the NPC here and get the quest to craft some starter gear. And then in order to craft the starter gear, we're going to talk to this NPC. But before we can craft this beginner's axe and pickaxe, we're going to need some rough logs and some rough stone, which we can get right above here. So you just click on this, and that's going to allow us to get the rough logs, and then we got to get the rough stone. Alright, so, but yeah, guys, I do want to tell you about today's video that we're making here, and that is the challenge. No one has ever done this challenge before. That is, but can you beat Albion Online with dementia? It's the challenge that we're going to figure out today here in this video. We're going to see if we can beat Albion Online with dementia. This has never been done before. Now, Albion Online has been out for 5 years now, and no one has ever done this challenge, right? And in order to do this challenge, we're going to have to go through the tutorial, so we're going to need some rough logs and some rough stone. We're going to need this later to complete a quest, so that when the NPC asks us how to, to like craft some starter tools, we're going to go ahead and grab these starter resources so that we don't have to go gather them later. So we're just going to pick them up now, and then we're going to go ahead and start talking to this NPC. And but before we talk to the NPC, we need to get some starter resources, okay? Because there's a challenge that I want to tell you guys about, and it's about no one's ever beaten Albion Online with dementia before. This will be the first time we've ever done it. And in order to do it, we're going to go ahead and gather some of these resources early on so that we can go ahead and craft ourselves some starter gathering tools later on once we get to the starter island area, which is right after this zone. And once we've gathered these up, we can then talk to this NPC that's kind of to our left, and he's going to give us a quest to like run up a lighthouse or something. It's basic controls. So we're going to go ahead and talk to this NPC here, and he wants us to climb the tower. Now, before we climb the tower, I got to tell you about a challenge that we're doing. And that challenge is no one has ever beaten Albion Online before with dementia. So this will be the first time that anyone has ever beaten Albion Online with dementia. But in order to do that, we have to go through the tutorial. It's always a good idea on a new character to go through the tutorial. Now, what we're going to do in the tutorial is we're going to run up here and just do what the quest says. We have an NPC here that we're going to talk to, and he's going to have us run up this little lighthouse here, just like this. And I'm just using my boot ability here, to get up the tower faster. And so at the start of the tower, if you use your boot ability, you can run up the stairs just a little bit faster like this. And yeah, we can just sit here and run up the tower using our boot ability. It does a little flip. I don't know how you do a front rolling flip on a rickety staircase, but that's just how it is. And so that's the first quest here in the little starter zone. So with that, we're going to also go back down the staircase, and of course we're going to then tell the NPC, hey, we ran up the staircase. Now it's going to have us gather some resources, right? And unfortunately, you're going to have to gather what it says. It wants us to get 6 rough stone and 6 rough logs. So there we go. We now have 4 out of 6. And then once we grab these, we are doing a challenge. And that challenge is, can you beat Albion Online with dementia? And that's what we're doing here today. So I'm right here in the start of the game. And we're just going to gather some resources real quick. So that if we gather the resources now when the quest tells us to get these, we will have already done this, and so once we go and turn in the quest, we won't have to go and do this when it asks for us to do this later. Now, another cool thing is that there's a spot on the lighthouse that when we run up a certain part of the stairs, it refreshes our boots. But let's go ahead and talk to the NPC here, and then he's going to give us a quest to run up the lighthouse. And then, but before we do that, though, we want to gather some resources so that we can skip a few quests up ahead. One of these is a quest that lets us craft some basic starter gear. And again, the reason we're doing this is because it's a challenge, and no one's ever beaten the game before with dementia. Albion Online's been out for about 8 years now. It's been a long time, and no one's ever done this challenge. And so we're just gathering these resources here. And then once we gather the resources, we can talk to the NPC. He's going to have us run up the lighthouse. And so we're going to do that real quick. We're going to just run up the lighthouse, and then actually, before we run up the lighthouse, though, we're actually going to go and talk to this NPC instead because he's glowing. I'm not sure. I think it's bugged. I don't know. Maybe it's bugged or something. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and put this gear on, and then we're going to go ahead and go to the gate. But before we go to the gate, we need to gather just a little bit more resources here. You can see that by picking these up now, you won't have to pick them up later when we get to the main island. That way we can craft some starter gear. And that's because we're doing a challenge, and the challenge is, can you beat Albion Online with dementia? And I think it can be done. I'm going to show in this video that it can be done, that you can beat the game with dementia. And yeah, so what we got to do is we're just gathering some basic resources here so that we can get started and skip a few quests. And now with these basic resources, we can then talk to this NPC, who's then going to send us up the stairway, and we can use our boot ability, and then when we get halfway up, we can use our boot ability again. And I guess the quest is bugged because there's normally little circles here, but that's weird. I think, maybe the game just completed it for us. I'm not really sure why. But, the whole point of doing this in this order is so that we can be ready for the quests up ahead. And so right now we're going to go ahead and enter this gate here. And I'm not sure what these guys are. They're just kind of, they're not enemies because, oh, maybe they, I don't know why they're attacking me. I don't really know what this guy is. And here's Big Pedro. I guess it's Big Spencer. I guess they renamed him. It was Big Padro. I don't know how to say his name. But we're going to go ahead and take him out real quick. And, yeah, we're going to just push buttons and he's going to die. So that's how you kill the first boss. You just, you push the buttons. You see how this button here, it says Heroic Cleave? Well, you just push the button and then he goes down. And he drops this helmet. Alright. Now, with the helmet, we can go ahead and put that on, and it gives us a little shield ability, but, we gotta kill these little wild scavenger guys. I know you can't, I know there's text in the way you can't see, but what that just did is it leveled up our Novice Adventurer, and that's gonna help us in this challenge of beating Albion Online, with Dementia. So, in order to proceed now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to the cove here. And the cove is like kind of the main island area where we're going to turn in some quests. And so we're going to go ahead and talk to this NPC here. And they're going to tell us to buy a mule. So we're going to go ahead and buy the mule. So we're going to, you know, purchase that for 3 silver, whatever. And then we need to put the mule, you know, we need to take it and equip it, put it on. So now that we have the mule, we can then talk to the NPC. And we can go over here and then we can buy a mule. And that's going to cost 3 silver, and then with the mule, we can go ahead and equip it, and then we can start riding the mule. Now, it's very important that you get used to riding the mule, so that you can go up here, and you can talk to this NPC, who's going to have us craft some starter gear, alright? So we're going to go ahead and go over here and craft ourselves a beginner pickaxe and a beginner's axe. And now that we have that done, we can then proceed to the next part of the quest. But before we do that, we need to make sure that we go ahead and grab some rough stone. Now, rough stone is very important, not only for crafting these starter tools that we just got, but you want to leave Tutorial Island with a lot of this rough stone because it sells for a lot of money. And as a matter of fact, if you look right here, the value is at 202 silver. That's the highest value of stone that you could possibly get. And we're going to need a lot of silver because we are doing a challenge that no one has ever done before. And that challenge is, can you beat Albion Online with Dementia? Now, when we're at this stage of the game, we're going to have to go over here, and we're going to have to craft a beginner's pickaxe, and we're going to need a beginner's axe as well. And remember earlier when I told you something? I told you something to do, but you'll have to rewind the video because, you know, it was important whatever it is that I told you. But we need to talk to this NPC. He's going to have us craft some starter tools, so we're going to go over here, and we're going to craft the beginner's pickaxe and the beginner's axe. There we go. And but before we do any other questing, you know, it's important that we go and grab this rough stone, because this rough stone, it's pretty damn valuable. It's the most valuable thing that you can take out of Tutorial Island. You can see here that rough stone is worth 202 silver each. So whenever you go and leave the island, you can sell this rough stone for a lot of starter cash. It's very good. And we're going to need a lot of that starter cash because we're doing a challenge that no one has ever done before. Now, Albion Online has been out for 12 years, and no one has ever beaten this game with Dementia, okay? And so, in order to do that, we need to go and we need to buy a mule, okay? We need to go over here and we need to buy a mule, and it's right here for 3 silver at the market. So we're going to go ahead and put that mule on, and then we're going to ride it so that we can go and speed up and do all of these other quests, okay? And so, with this mule, we can now go over here to this quest NPC that's going to have us craft these starter tools. We're going to do this beginner's pickaxe, and we don't have enough wood to craft the axe. Now, if we grab the wood, it's right here. There we go. And I don't know how I'm chopping a tree with an axe. I guess the game just gives you an axe. Normally you have to harvest it with your hands. But anyway, with that, we can then craft that beginner's axe. And that's going to allow us to do the next quest. But before we do the next quest, it's very important that we gather this rough stone, because rough stone is super important for getting lots of silver. You can see right now that the market value of rough stone is 202 silver. We're going to need a lot of that silver because we have a challenge that we're doing. And that challenge is trying to... We're actually going to beat Albion Online. It's no one's ever done this challenge. And, you know, Albion Online has been around for about 9 years now. And no one has ever beaten the game with Dementia. No one has ever done this. And in order to get a really good start, we're going to get a lot of this rough stone, which you can see is worth, just one rough stone is worth 202 silver. And that's going to give us a big head start on bankroll so that we We'll have a lot of starting money. We could buy a lot of starter gear once we leave Tutorial Island. But in order to leave Tutorial Island, we got to do the quest. So if we talk to this NPC here, he's going to have us craft a, what does he have us do? Craft a beginner's pickaxe and a beginner's axe. But we're going to need some rough logs for that. You know, we got the stone earlier, but we're going to go ahead and grab these rough logs just real quick. And I'm not sure why I have an axe already. I guess the game just gives you one. Why does it have us craft an axe if it gave us one already? But there we go. We crafted the beginner's pickaxe. And now we can go ahead and turn in that quest, which will then have us go elsewhere. But before we go elsewhere, we want to get the rough stone. Because we're doing a challenge that no one has ever done before. And that challenge is, can you beat Albion Online with dementia? And I think you can. I know we can. It's absolutely possible to beat Albion Online with dementia. But we're going to need a lot of this rough stone. Because rough stone, you can see here, it's worth 202 silver. And again, Albion Online has been around for about 4.5 years now. And no one has ever done this challenge. And that challenge is, can you beat Albion Online with dementia? So it looks like it wants us to go into the forest now. And so here we are in the forest. So we just made a new character, so we're doing a challenge that we have no one has ever done this in the entire history of the game. And Albion Online's been around for about 7 3/4 years now. And that challenge is, can you beat Albion Online with dementia? Now, in order to beat Albion Online with dementia, we have to have a really solid, strong start here in Tutorial Island. We made a new character. And so we're going to gather some resources because there's a quest later that's going to have us craft some starter tools. And we're also going to be using this rough stone in order to bankroll our early economy when we leave the island. And you can see here there's just a nice little loop that we can do here. And then that's going to get us started and let us skip some of these earlier quests. And for those that don't know, well, stone is worth 202 silver. And so, we're going to go ahead and talk to this quest NPC. He's going to have us walk up the lighthouse. Now, before you do this, it's actually important that you actually gather these resources right here, because you want them for some quests that are up ahead, like crafting a starter pickaxe and an axe. So we're just going to grab this now so we don't have to do it later, because we want to just speed run and play the Tutorial Island as optimally as possible. And by doing so, that's going to help us beat this challenge of, can you beat Albion Online with dementia? And, well, I'm not sure if we can or not. No one's ever done it, of course. No one has ever done it. But we're going to talk to this NPC. He's going to give us a quest. And, you know, it's been about 9 2/3 years, you know, since the game has come out. And so I think it's time that someone has done this challenge. But, yeah, this challenge here, we're going to go ahead and just start doing some of these starter quests. And, you know, that challenge is, can you beat Albion Online with dementia? But in order to do that, we're going to grab some of these resources right here in this circle, because we're going to need to craft some of these resources. We're going to need to craft some gathering tools later with them. And also, it's just a good idea to have rough stone, because rough stone is worth 202 silver. And you can go ahead and just take that to the market once you leave Tutorial Island. It's going to give you a nice bankroll to be able to just buy some starter gear and a lot of other things like that. Because, yeah, that's just what we do. And, yeah, so this is going to help us do the Tutorial Island here by talking to this NPC. He's going to have us walk up and, you know, step on some circles here at the top of the lighthouse. And that's going to get the quest started to roll out. So we just go over here. And I guess the circles aren't here for some reason. I guess I know they changed. They're always changing the starter zone. They're always changing the quest zones. So maybe you don't have to walk up here anymore. It's telling me that I need to craft. I need to talk to the crafter or something. What do I need to do? Oh, I hit complete. Yeah, I did. I guess they took the circles away, but we have to definitely walk into those circles. But we already gathered these, so the quest wants us to gather these. So we're gonna go ahead and gather these, and then we can turn in the quest because we gathered these. But before we do that, we're actually gonna need to get the quest to go up to the lighthouse, and so we're gonna walk up to the lighthouse. And that's going to allow us to beat this challenge of, can you beat Albion Online with dementia?